Alright, today we've got 3 creepy dark web stories from right here in the UK. Buckle up, because these ones are mental. And hey, after hearing this, you're not seriously going to be tempted to check out the dark web, right? I mean, who'd be that mad? I'm Jake, just your average guy living in London with my parents. Ever since my sister Sarah died a year ago, things have never been the same. Sarah was always a bit of a moody teen, getting worked up over small stuff. Back then, I worked at a bookstore near her school, so I'd pick her up most days after work. One day, I arrived at the school like usual and saw her arguing with some guy. She looked pissed, but as soon as I got close, she shut up and jumped into my car without a word. The whole ride home, she stayed silent, and I didn't push her to talk. I figured I'd ask later when she calmed down. The next day was a Saturday, so I thought I'd try to cheer her up. I went to her room, only to find her glued to her computer screen. I sat down next to her and asked, "So what's the plan for today? Want to hang out?" She barely glanced at me and said, "I'm just browsing the dark web." That hit me hard. Dark web? I didn't know much, but I knew enough to stay far away from that shady part of the internet. Sarah then explained she was on a platform called Hidden Answers, like a creepy version of Reddit, where people post all kinds of disturbing questions because they can stay anonymous. Alarm bells went off in my head. I told her it wasn't safe, but Sarah brushed me off, acting like I didn't get it. To keep an eye on her, I started poking around the dark web myself. The stuff I found on Hidden Answers, it was beyond messed up. I stumbled on this thread where someone asked how to dispose of their mother's body. I thought it was a sick joke until I saw the replies. People actually gave detailed instructions, things like chopping the body into small pieces and feeding it to dogs. I felt my stomach turn. I immediately closed the page and tried to warn Sarah again, but as usual, she wasn't having it. "Mind your own business, Jake," she'd snap. Then, a couple of days later, my mum came to me looking freaked out. She said she found something strange under Sarah's bed while cleaning. A rope, some candles shaped like snakes, and some burnt papers. That's when I knew this wasn't just a phase. I tracked down that guy I saw her arguing with. He told me Sarah had gotten into some satanic stuff she found on the dark web. She even tried to rope him into a ritual that was supposed to give them some sort of spiritual awakening. It was all I needed to hear. I knew I had to stop her. That night, while my parents were out visiting my grandmother, it was just me and Sarah at home. She came back from her friend's house, headed straight to her room and locked the door. I knocked, telling her we needed to talk, but she just yelled at me to leave her alone. I didn't want to make things worse, so I sat downstairs on the couch waiting for her to cool off. Next thing I know, I woke up tied up on the floor, my mouth taped shut. Panic set in. I had no idea what had happened, but then I heard footsteps coming from upstairs. Slowly, down the stairs came Sarah, but she wasn't my little sister anymore. She was wearing all black with this crazed look in her eyes. I could barely breathe as she walked up to me, leaned down and whispered, "I know you're trying to stop me, Jake, but it's too late. Tonight I'm going to be part of something bigger." She told me that she had learned from Hidden Answers that attempting suicide could give her the ultimate spiritual experience, the moment right before death, when you supposedly see the universe unfold. My heart raced as she climbed onto a chair and tied a rope around her neck. She looked down at me and said, "Don't worry, I'll stop just before I die. I just want to see what they saw." But things didn't go as planned. She kicked the chair away, and the next thing I knew, she was choking, gasping for air, and desperately trying to grab the rope. But it was too late. I screamed, cried, tried to break free, but I was helpless. When my parents came home, it was already over. They found me tied up on the floor and Sarah hanging from the ceiling. My mum collapsed, and my dad just stood there, frozen. The police came, cut her down, and took her away. I lost my sister that day, right in front of my eyes, and there was nothing I could do to save her. Since then, my mum hasn't been the same. She just sits in the living room, staring at the ceiling like Sarah's still up there. As for me, I can't stop blaming myself for not doing more. I didn't give up easily, though. I started digging into that dark web group Sarah was involved with, trying to find answers. I was getting closer too, until one night I received an anonymous email. It was short and to the point. "If you don't stop, your parents will be next." That was it. I was done. I couldn't put my family in danger. So I shut it all down. But no matter how hard I try to move on, the fear never leaves. I always feel like someone's watching, waiting. And I know this nightmare is far from over. We were just trying to have a good time. It was a typical Saturday night. Me, Jake, Sam, and a few of the lads hanging out at my place. Pizza, a couple of beers, the usual banter. We were chilling when, out of nowhere, Jake brought up something random. "You lot ever heard about those mystery boxes from the dark web?" he asked, grinning like he knew something we didn't. We all looked at him, waiting for him to laugh or say it was a joke, but he just kept grinning. "Nah, seriously," he continued. "I've been watching some YouTube videos. People buy these mystery boxes off the dark web, and when they open them, it's all sorts of mad stuff. Sometimes it's actual evidence from crimes." I wasn't feeling it. I mean, the dark web. That's not exactly where you go for a laugh. But before I could say anything, Sam chimed in. "Mate, let's do it. Let's order one." And just like that, the whole vibe shifted. Everyone was buzzing with excitement. Well, everyone except me. I had a bad feeling about this. You know that feeling when your gut's screaming at you to walk away? Yeah, that was me. But when the whole group's up for something, you can't exactly back out. Jake pulled out his laptop, opened up Tor, and was straight into the dark web like he'd done it 1,000 times. I leaned over his shoulder, watching as he scrolled through what looked like a dodgy version of eBay. No proper descriptions, just random boxes with price tags. £200, £300, even higher for the really big ones. The ones that probably had the worst stuff in them. "You see that one?" Jake pointed at a £200 box. "Let's do it." Before I could even suggest maybe going for something cheaper, Jake clicked it. He paid with Bitcoin, of course, and just like that, it was done. "This is going to be mad," he said, buzzing with excitement. The rest of the lads were pumped too. Me? I wasn't so sure. A week later, we got the message. The box had arrived, but of course it wasn't coming to my door like some Amazon delivery. No, the pickup location was under a bridge, about 10 kilometers outside town. No address, no delivery service, just a set of coordinates. I thought about backing out, but again, no one else seemed bothered. So we piled into Sam's car and drove out there late at night. When we got there, it was creepy as hell. No one around, just the sound of the wind and an empty bridge in the middle of nowhere. Sure enough, under the bridge was a plain cardboard box. No label, no name, nothing. Jake was all smiles though, like it was the best thing ever. We grabbed the box, threw it in the car and sped back to my place. That's when things started getting weird. We all gathered around the coffee table, staring at the box like it was about to explode or something. The room felt heavy, like something wasn't right. Jake grabbed a knife and started cutting through the tape. Every slice echoed in the room like it was too loud for how quiet everything had suddenly become. When he finally opened the box, there were 3 things inside: a leather belt, a wallet, and a pair of socks. At first, we all kind of laughed. "Is that it?" Sam asked, chuckling nervously. "What a waste of £200. Jake picked up the belt, flipping it around in his hands. "Feels like real leather, but it's probably just some cheap knockoff you'd get off AliExpress." But then I picked up the socks, and my stomach dropped. They felt wrong, not like normal socks. The material was soft, almost too soft, and the leather on the belt and wallet was rough. Way too rough. I looked closer and noticed tiny black hairs stuck to the socks. My heart started racing. This isn't right," I muttered, barely able to get the words out. These feel like human skin." The room went dead silent. Jake and Sam both froze, staring at the stuff in the box like they finally realized what they were holding. Jake's face turned pale as he dropped the belt back into the box like it was burning his hands. "No way, mate," Sam whispered, his voice shaky. "That can't be." But deep down, we all knew what it was. The texture, the smell, the sick feeling in the pit of my stomach, it was real. Too real. Jake fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking, ready to call someone, anyone. But just before he could dial, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. We all leaned in, staring at the screen. The message was simple. "Hope you're enjoying your human leather." I felt the blood drain from my face. Sam staggered back, nearly knocking over his beer, while Jake just stood there, staring at his phone, his eyes wide with fear. None of us said a word. It was like time had stopped, and the air was suddenly too thick to breathe. We need to burn this stuff," I finally managed to say, breaking the silence. "Right now." No one argued. We grabbed the box, ran out to the backyard and tossed everything into the fire pit. I watched as the flames licked up the sides of the box, the leather curling and burning in the heat. The smell that came from it was foul, like burning hair and meat. I felt sick, but I couldn't look away until it was all gone, reduced to ash. Jake changed his number that night, deleted every trace of the dark web from his computer, and swore he'd never go near it again. We all agreed to forget about it, to move on. For a while I thought maybe we were in the clear, but then 3 days later I got a text. "Burning it won't stop us. We know where you live. We're watching." I dropped my phone. The message wasn't from some random prankster. It was real. My hands shook as I picked the phone back up, rereading the message, hoping I'd imagined it. But no, it was real. I haven't told the guys about the text yet. I don't know if they got one too, but one thing's for sure, this isn't over, and now I'm scared it never will be. I was 19, just starting college, and life was pretty much what you'd expect. Classes, hanging out with friends, maybe partying a little too much. I was living with my senior, Kevin, who was always surrounded by friends doing, well, not exactly the kind of stuff I wanted to get into. They drank a lot, smoked and did drugs. Most days I'd walk in and find them doing something sketchy. I usually kept my distance, but one night I made a mistake I'll never forget. I just had a huge argument with my girlfriend. I was frustrated, feeling lost, and honestly just wanted to escape for a while. Kevin was in his room, probably high, but I knocked on his door anyway. He opened it slowly, eyes glazed, and gave me a lazy grin. "Girlfriend troubles?" he asked, as if he'd heard the whole argument through the walls. I felt a little embarrassed, but at that moment I didn't care. I just needed a break. I walked in and sat on his couch, trying to relax. The room was dark, curtains drawn, and the only light came from Kevin's computer screen. His desktop was weird, different from the normal Google stuff I was used to. The URL wasn't a .com, it was .onion, which immediately made me feel uneasy. I knew what that meant, the dark web. Kevin didn't seem to care. He was snorting a line of something white and strong. "You want some?" he asked, laughing like it was no big deal. I don't know why, but in that moment, with everything going on, I didn't say no. I didn't think. I just said yes. Big mistake. For the next hour, I felt like I was on top of the world, euphoric, unstoppable. I started talking a lot, asking him what he was doing on the computer. "This isn't regular Google, is it?" He laughed hard. "Bro, this is the dark web, where you get the real stuff." He told me about Silk Road, where people buy all kinds of illegal drugs, weapons, and God knows what else. I was too high to care, nodding along as he showed me all these sketchy sites. After that night, things went downhill. Fast. I got hooked on the feeling, and soon enough I started asking Kevin to get me more. He didn't mind. It made him feel like some kind of drug lord. 2 of my friends got in on it too, and we'd buy our stuff off the dark web thinking we were invincible. Then one day, Kevin moved out. He was graduating, moving in with his girlfriend, and just like that, our source was gone. But I was too deep into it by then. I couldn't stop. So I did what I thought was the next logical step. I tried buying the drugs myself. I logged onto Silk Road, browsed through the sketchy listings, and clicked on a deal that seemed too good to be true. A huge bag of powder for way cheaper than usual. I figured it was a steal, so I ordered it without a second thought. A week later, the package arrived. No name, no return address, just a small, unmarked box. I ripped it open, and there it was, the powder, neatly packed inside. I invited my friends over that night, ready to get high again. But as soon as I snorted the first line, I knew something was horribly wrong. The burning sensation was unreal. My nostrils felt like they were on fire, and within seconds, blood started pouring out of my nose. I dropped to the floor screaming in pain. My friends were freaking out, but they hadn't touched the stuff yet, thank God. They rushed me to the bathroom, where I tried to rinse my nose out with water, but nothing helped. I was a mess, crying, vomiting, barely able to stand. They called Kevin, but there was nothing he could do. Eventually, the pain subsided enough for me to pass out. I woke up the next morning feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, but something about that night haunted me. What the hell had I snorted? It wasn't normal, that much was clear. So, I asked my buddy, who had a girlfriend in the microbiology department, to run some tests on the powder. A few days later, she came back with results I still can't wrap my head around. "It's not a drug," she told me, looking as freaked out as I felt. "It's bone dust, human bone dust." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I snorted human bones. I could barely process it. How the hell did this even happen? Why would someone sell this? I was shaking, nauseous, horrified. I mean, who does that? From that moment, everything changed. I couldn't look at myself the same way, couldn't believe what I'd gotten into. I dropped everything. No more drugs, no more dark web, nothing. I was done. But the nightmares didn't stop. I kept seeing images of skeletons, bones crumbling into dust. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd feel that burning again, like the powder was still inside me. To this day, I can't explain why someone would sell human bone dust on the dark web. Maybe they were trying to get rid of evidence. Maybe it was some sick joke, but whatever the reason, I'm never touching that part of the internet again.